3 months ago, my husband called my business a cute little hobby in front of his CEO friends at dinner last week. Those same CEOs offered me $50,000 just for a consultation. But here's the twist, I said no. And what happened next? Well, to change how you think about success, respect, and the power of proving people wrong. Stick around, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's choosing who deserves to benefit from it. Asterisk. And if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or laughed at for your dreams, this story is for you. Asterisk. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and 6 months ago, I was just another corporate wife attending dinner parties, smiling politely while my husband David and his business school friends discussed their real careers. David works for a Fortune 500 consulting firm, pulling in a comfortable six-figure salary. His friends, CEOs, VPs, the whole powersuit crowd, and me, I had what they called my little online thing. You see, while David was climbing the corporate ladder, I was building something they couldn't understand: an online business, teaching productivity systems to overwhelmed professionals. It started small, really small. A blog, some free templates, maybe $500 a month if I was lucky. But I believed in it. I believed in the people I was helping. That belief was about to be tested in the most humiliating way possible. Before we dive into this story, if you're building something others don't understand, or if you've ever felt dismissed for your ambitions, hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about turning setbacks into comebacks, and trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Now, let me take you back to that dinner party. The night everything changed. Asterisk. It was a Thursday evening in March. David had invited 3 of his most successful friends over for dinner: Marcus, the CEO of a tech startup that just went public; Jennifer, a VP at a major bank; and Tom, who runs a consulting firm similar to David's but twice the size. I'd spent the entire day preparing, not just the meal, which was perfect, by the way, but mentally preparing myself for another evening of feeling invisible. You know that feeling, right? When you're in a room full of people discussing things you're supposedly too small to understand. The evening started normally enough. Wine, appetizers, the usual small talk about market trends, and quarterly reports. I contributed when I could, sharing insights from articles I'd read, asking thoughtful questions about their industries. But mostly I listened. That's what I always did. I listened and learned, filing away every insight, every strategy they discussed. David had this way of introducing me at these gatherings that always made my stomach turn. This is my wife Sarah. She's got this little online project she works on. Never business, never company. Always project or thing or hobby. Like I was crafting friendship bracelets instead of building something meaningful. The conversation flowed through the usual topics: Marcus's IPO success, Jennifer's promotion to senior VP, Tom's expansion into the European market. Each achievement was met with congratulations, detailed questions, and genuine interest. I watched them lean in when each other spoke, saw the respect in their eyes, felt the weight of their attention. Then Marcus asked the question that would change everything. "So Sarah, David mentioned you do something online. What's that about?" My heart rate spiked. Finally a chance to share what I was passionate about. I took a breath and began explaining my business: how I helped overwhelmed professionals create systems that doubled their productivity. How I was developing a course that had already helped hundreds of people reclaim their time and sanity. I told them about Maria, a marketing director who was working 70-hour weeks until my system helped her streamline her processes and get promoted while working 45 hours. About James, an entrepreneur whose business was failing because he couldn't manage his time effectively, but who tripled his revenue after implementing my framework. About the community I was building, the impact I was making, the transformation, stories that filled my inbox daily. I was getting excited, really excited, describing the methodology I'd developed, the research I'd done, the results I was achieving. For a moment I felt seen, I felt valued, I felt like I belonged at this table of successful professionals. Marcus was nodding thoughtfully. Jennifer was asking follow-up questions about my target market. Tom was taking notes on his phone. For the first time in months of these dinner parties, I felt like I was being taken seriously. That's when David started laughing. Not a supportive chuckle or an encouraging smile. A dismissive, condescending laugh that cut through the room like a knife. The kind of laugh that makes everyone else stop talking and turn to see what's so funny. "Come on, Sarah," he said, setting down his wine glass with a theatrical sigh. "Let's be honest about what this really is. It's a hobby. A cute little side project that makes you feel productive." While I handled the real bills, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. But David wasn't done. He was just getting started. I mean, what are we talking here? A few $100s a month from some blog posts. Maybe 1,000 on a good month. He gestured toward his friends. Marcus just closed a $50 million deal last quarter. Jennifer's managing a portfolio worth more than most people see in a lifetime. And Tom's building an actual business, with real employees and real revenue streams. He leaned back in his chair, warming to his theme. "This is just, playing entrepreneur on the internet. It's sweet, really. But let's not pretend it's in the same league as what we do. We're talking about real business here, boardrooms, stakeholders, multi-million-dollar decisions. Sarah's got a blog and some PDFs she sells for $20. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around the table Marcus was studying, his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. Jennifer was suddenly very interested in the wine label, and Tom was checking his phone with the intensity of someone receiving urgent news. No one defended me, no one said a word, no one even looked at me. David continued, oblivious to or perhaps enjoying my humiliation. Don't get me wrong, I'm proud that she's found something to keep her busy. Better than shopping or soap operas, right? But let's call it what it is. It's a nice little distraction, not a career I wanted to disappear. I wanted to crawl under the table or run to my room or just vanish completely. But something kept me frozen in my chair, maybe shock, maybe disbelief, maybe the desperate hope that someone would speak up for me. No one did. Instead, Jennifer cleared her throat and changed the subject to some merger in the banking sector. The conversation moved on as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just been completely dismissed and humiliated in front of people whose respect I'd been trying to earn for months. But here's what David didn't know. What none of them knew. I wasn't just playing. While he was sleeping, I was up until 2 a.m. answering emails from clients whose careers I was saving. While he was playing golf on weekends, I was creating content that was reaching thousands of people across 6 continents. While he was complaining about his job and counting down to retirement, I was building something I loved, something that mattered, something that changed people's lives. That night, after everyone left and David went to bed without so much as an apology or even an acknowledgement of what he'd done, I sat in my home office staring at my computer screen. The same screen where I'd written hundreds of articles, created dozens of courses, and answered thousands of emails from grateful clients. I had 2 choices: shrink back into invisibility, accept his assessment of my worth, and resign myself to being the quiet wife with a cute little hobby, or prove him wrong so spectacularly that he'd never dismissed anyone's dreams again. I chose war, but not the kind of war you might think. I didn't scream or throw dishes or threaten divorce. I didn't give him the silent treatment or make passive-aggressive comments. I did something far more powerful, far more strategic, far more devastating to his worldview. I got to work, and what I discovered over the next 3 months would not only transform my business, it would completely flip the power dynamic in my marriage and leave those dinner party guests eating their words, begging for my help, and paying premium prices for the privilege. The morning after that dinner party, I woke up with a clarity I'd never experienced before. You know what they say about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to build on. And David had just handed me the strongest foundation possible. Pure, burning motivation fueled by righteous indignation. But I didn't just want to prove him wrong. I wanted to prove him wrong so completely, so undeniably, so spectacularly that he'd never underestimate anyone's potential again. More than that, I wanted to build something so successful that his friends would be coming to me for advice instead of the other way around. First, I did something I should have done months earlier. I got brutally honest about my business. Not the version I told myself to feel better about slow growth, but the real numbers: revenue, expenses, profit margins, customer acquisition costs, lifetime value. I treated my little hobby like the Fortune 500 company I wanted it to become. The results shocked even me. In the 3 months since January, I'd generated $47,000 in revenue. Not the few $100s David had dismissed, but actual significant income. I'd helped over 300 people implement productivity systems that saved them an average of 10 hours per week. That's 3,000 hours of human life I'd given back to the world. My email list had grown to 8,000 subscribers, with an engagement rate that would make marketing agencies weep with envy. Most importantly, my clients weren't just satisfied, they were transformed. I had a folder of testimonials that read like miracle stories, people getting promotions because they could finally manage their workload, entrepreneurs scaling their businesses because they learned to work strategically instead of frantically, parents who could finally be present with their families because they'd reclaimed control of their time. But I was thinking too small, way too small. I spent the next 2 weeks doing something. David's consulting firm would charge $20,000 for a complete strategic analysis of my market, my positioning, and my growth potential. I researched my competitors, analyzed pricing strategies, studied customer behavior patterns, and mapped out the entire productivity training landscape. What I discovered was that I wasn't just running a little productivity blog. I was sitting on a goldmine that I'd been treating like a garage sale. The corporate productivity training market is worth $366 billion annually. Companies spend millions trying to help their employees manage overwhelm, increase efficiency, and prevent burnout. McKinsey studies show that productivity improvements can increase profits by 25 to 30%. And here I was, with a proven system and hundreds of success stories, treating it like a side project the corporate world was desperate for, solutions I'd already perfected. So I made a series of decisions that would change everything. First, I was going to stop thinking like a blogger and start thinking like a CEO. Second, I was going to raise my prices to reflect the actual value I was providing. Third, I was going to scale systematically and strategically. I started by raising my prices. That $99 course I'd been practically giving away, it became $497. My one-on-one consulting that I'd been doing for $75 an hour because I felt guilty charging more, now $300 an hour, with a 3-session minimum. I was terrified no one would pay. They not only paid, they paid eagerly and gratefully. Within a week, I'd made more money than I had in the previous 3 months combined. But money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was realizing that I'd been undervaluing myself so dramatically that I was actually doing my clients a disservice. When people invest significantly in themselves, they implement more seriously. Higher prices led to better results, which led to more enthusiastic testimonials, which led to more referrals. I reinvested every penny back into the business: professional website design, email marketing automation, customer relationship management systems, professional photography. I started showing up online like the expert I was instead of the hobbyist I'd been pretending to be. But the real breakthrough came when I developed what would become my signature program, the Executive Efficiency Blueprint. Instead of helping individuals one at a time, I created a comprehensive system that could transform entire teams and organizations. I spent 6 weeks developing the curriculum, drawing on everything I'd learned from hundreds of individual clients: time audit frameworks, priority matrices, delegation strategies, meeting optimization protocols, digital workflow systems. It was everything an overwhelmed professional needed to reclaim their time and sanity, packaged into a systematic program. Then I did something that put me directly in David's world. I started targeting corporate clients, not just individuals looking for personal productivity tips, but companies wanting to train their entire teams. My first corporate client came through a referral from Sandra, a marketing director I'd been working with individually. She'd seen such incredible results cutting her workweek from 60 hours to 45, while increasing her team's output by 30%, that she convinced her CEO to bring me in for a company-wide training. I've priced the corporate program at $15,000 for a full team implementation. It felt audacious and terrifying and completely justified all at the same time. The results were immediate and measurable. Employee satisfaction scores went up 40%. Project completion times decreased by 25%. Sick days from stress-related issues dropped by half. Most importantly, the company saw a 33% increase in productivity within the first quarter, translating to over $2 million in additional revenue. Word started spreading in the corporate world, not through marketing or advertising but through results, the most powerful form of marketing there is. Executives talking to other executives about solutions that actually work. By month 2 of my new strategy, I had a waiting list. Companies were booking consultations 6 weeks out. I was commanding fees that made David's hourly consulting rate look like pocket change. I was working with VPs, CEOs, and executive teams who treated me not as someone's wife with a hobby, but as the expert I'd become. But the real transformation wasn't in my bank account, though that was certainly transforming. The real transformation was in how I saw myself. I stopped apologizing for my success. I stopped downplaying my achievements. I stopped seeking permission to be great. I started showing up as the CEO I'd always been but had never acknowledged. I bought business cards that said Sarah Mitchell, CEO. I opened a business banking account. I started networking with other executives, not as David's wife, but as Sarah Mitchell, the productivity expert who was revolutionizing how companies think about efficiency. And that's when the universe decided to deliver the most beautiful, ironic, perfectly timed plot twist I could have imagined. It was a Tuesday morning in June when David's carefully constructed world started cracking at the foundation. He was in the kitchen, coffee in hand, scrolling through LinkedIn before work, his usual morning routine of checking industry news and networking updates. Suddenly he stopped, just froze completely, staring at his phone screen like he'd seen a ghost. "Sarah," he called out, his voice strangely tight and uncertain. "Sarah, can you come here for a second?" I walked into the kitchen to find him staring at a LinkedIn post, with the intensity of someone trying to decode a foreign language. It was from Marcus, the same Marcus who'd witnessed my humiliation 3 months earlier. The CEO who'd just taken his company public and was now worth somewhere north of $50 million. The post read, "LinkedIn network, I need your help. Looking for recommendations for corporate productivity consultants who can handle enterprise-level implementations with measurable ROI. We're talking full organizational transformation, not just time management tips. Budget isn't an issue for the right person who can deliver results. Please comment or DM me with serious recommendations only." But that wasn't what had David frozen like a deer in headlights. It was the comments. Specifically, the first comment, from Jennifer, the same Jennifer who'd been at our dinner party, the VP who'd sat silently while I was humiliated. Her comment read, "Marcus, you absolutely need to connect with Sarah Mitchell, immediately." I can't share specific details due to confidentiality agreements, but what she did for our executive team was nothing short of miraculous. ROI was 400% in the first quarter alone, and our employee satisfaction scores hit all highs. She's booked solid through the rest of the year, but maybe mention my name, worth every penny and then some. Below that, another comment from someone David didn't recognize, seconding Sarah Mitchell. She transformed our entire workflow structure. 6-month waiting list, but worth it. And another. Sarah Mitchell is the gold standard. Just completed her Executive Efficiency Blueprint program. Best business investment we've made in 5 years. David looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Confusion mixed with something that might have been respect, or maybe just in shock at discovering that the woman he'd been married to for 8 years had apparently become someone he didn't recognize. Are they talking about you? About your ... hobby? The word hobby hung in the air like a bad smell. Even he seemed to realize how ridiculous it sounded now. I just smiled and poured myself coffee. David, I need to tell you something. That hobby you laughed at 3 months ago. Last month it generated more revenue than your annual salary. His coffee mug stopped halfway to his lips. That's impossible. I pulled out my phone and opened my business banking app. 3 deposits in the past week alone, $25,000 from a tech startup in Austin, $15,000 from a manufacturing company in Ohio, and $30,000 from Jennifer's bank for an expanded training program. The $30,000 was from Jennifer's company. You remember Jennifer, right? From the dinner party where you told everyone my work was just a cute distraction. Turns out that distraction solved a productivity crisis that was costing them millions in lost efficiency. They've already booked me for a follow-up implementation across 3 more departments. David sat down heavily at the kitchen counter, his morning routine completely forgotten. But you never said anything. You never told me it was doing this well. David, I tried to tell you about my work for months. Every time I brought it up, you changed the subject or made a joke or reminded me about the real bills you were handling. You trained me not to share my successes with you. But Sarah, if you had known that my little hobby was actually profitable. That's the only thing that makes it worthy of respect. Not the hundreds of people I've helped. Not the impact I'm making. Not the fact that I love what I do, just the money. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his phone screen where Marcus's post was still generating comments and recommendations. How long has it been like this? The success? About 3 months. The potential, it was always there. You just couldn't see it. But here's the thing. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had been the fuel that got me started, but it had transformed into something much more powerful, unshakable confidence. I didn't need his validation anymore. I had something better. I had results, respect from industry leaders, and a business that was changing lives on a scale I'd never imagined. Over the next 2 weeks, something fascinating and deeply satisfying happened. David's friends started reaching out, not to him, but directly to me. The same people who'd sat silently while he humiliated me were now sliding into my DMs like teenagers with crushes. First it was Tom. Remember Tom? The one who'd sat silently while David eviscerated my dreams, too focused on his phone to defend me. He sent a LinkedIn message that was almost painful in its awkwardness. Sarah, I hope there are no hard feelings about that dinner party. Honestly, I had no idea about the scope and scale of your work. Your reputation in the corporate productivity space is incredibly. Everyone I know is talking about you. Would you be open to discussing a potential consultation for my firm? We're struggling with some efficiency issues that I think you could solve. Happy to work around your schedule, and budget isn't a concern. Then Marcus actually called, on the phone, like we were equals in business instead of acquaintances from dinner parties. Sarah, I owe you a massive apology. I should have spoken up that night when David was being an ass. That was inexcusable, and I'm embarrassed by my silence. But more importantly, I need your help. My executive team is drowning in inefficiencies post-IPO. We've scaled so fast that our systems are breaking down, and after seeing what you did for Jennifer's company, I know you're exactly what we need. What would it take to get on your calendar? But the call that changed everything, it made me realize just how completely the tables had turned, came from David's boss, Mrs. Mitchell. This is Robert Chen, David's managing director at Pinnacle Consulting. I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly, but your reputation in the corporate productivity space has reached our boardroom. We'd like to discuss the possibility of bringing you in for a company-wide consultation. David speaks so highly of your work, I almost laughed out loud. David hadn't said a word about my work, positive or negative, since that disastrous dinner party, but his boss didn't need to know that. I'd be happy to discuss it. Mr. Chen, though, I should mention that my corporate consultation rate starts at $50,000 for a comprehensive assessment, plus implementation fees that typically run another $75,000 to $100,000 depending on company size. That's well within our budget for the right results. When can we schedule an initial discussion? When David came home that evening, I was in my office, the same office where I'd sat in humiliation 3 months earlier, questioning whether I was delusional for thinking I could build something meaningful. But everything had changed. The Desk that used to hold a single laptop now had 3 monitors displaying analytics dashboards, client communications, and financial projections. The wall that used to be empty now displayed framed testimonials from Fortune 500 companies. The woman who used to feel invisible had become someone that corporate America was desperate to hire. "Your boss called," I said without looking up from the strategic plan I was developing for a new client. David stopped in the doorway like it hit an invisible wall. "About what he wants to hire me. $50,000 for the initial consultation, probably another $100,000 for full implementation. Apparently my reputation has reached your boardroom." David was quiet for a long moment, and I could practically hear the gears turning in his head as he processed this new reality. "Finally, Sarah, I owe you an apology, a big one, actually. I owe you more than an apology." I finally looked up from my work. "You owe me more than an apology, David, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, I have a business to run. A real business, with real clients, who pay real money for real results." The next month brought opportunities that would have seemed impossible just 4 months earlier. My calendar was booked solid through the following year. I had Fortune 500 companies on a waiting list, competing for my attention and paying premium rates for the privilege. What started as a cute little hobby had become one of the most sought-after corporate consulting practices in the productivity space. But the sweetest moment, the moment that would define not just my business trajectory but the entire future of my marriage, came when I had to make a choice that would reveal exactly who I'd become and what I was willing to accept going forward. David's 3 friends, Marcus, Jennifer, and Tom, all wanted to work with me. The same 3 people who'd witnessed my humiliation and done nothing were now desperate for my expertise. Jennifer's company had already seen incredible results from our initial engagement and wanted to expand our partnership to their entire East Coast operations. The contract value, $150,000, with potential for ongoing monthly retainers that could reach $300,000 annually. Marcus was offering something even more lucrative: exclusive productivity consulting for his entire corporate portfolio. 12 companies, systematic implementations, premium pricing, and a long-term contract worth over $500,000. It was the kind of deal that could set me up for life. And Tom was practically groveling. His consulting firm was hemorrhaging clients due to internal inefficiencies. Projects were consistently late, teams were burning out faster than they could hire replacements, and their reputation was suffering so badly that they were losing contracts to smaller competitors. He needed me desperately, and we both knew it. "Sarah, I'll be completely transparent with you," he said during our consultation call, his usual confidence replaced by something that sounded almost like desperation. "My company is in crisis mode. We've grown too fast without the right systems, and everything is falling apart. Client satisfaction is at an all-time low. Employee turnover is through the roof. And if we don't fix this soon, we're looking at massive layoffs or worse." He paused, and I could hear him take a shaky breath. "I was wrong that night at your dinner party, dead wrong. What David said was inexcusable, and I should have spoken up. I should have defended you, should have recognized what you were building, but I didn't, and now I'm paying for that short-sightedness." "What are you asking for, Tom?" "Complete organizational overhaul. Whatever it costs. I've got approval for up to $200,000 if that's what it takes. You're the only person I know who can save this company." I could have taken all 3 contracts. The combined revenue would have been over $800,000 more money than I'd ever dreamed of making in a single year. It would have instantly established me as one of the top-tier consultants in the space, with a client roster that read like a Fortune 500 directory. But something David had said that night 3 months earlier kept echoing in my mind: "Let's not pretend it's in the same league as what we do." That's when I realized the most powerful move wasn't taking every opportunity that came my way, it was choosing which opportunities deserved me. Success isn't just about making money, it's about working with people who value you before they need you, not just after they're desperate. I accepted Jennifer's expanded contract immediately. Her company had treated me with respect from day one, implemented my recommendations thoroughly, and achieved remarkable results. Working with them felt like a true partnership, where my expertise was valued and my contributions were recognized. They'd earned the right to expand our relationship. I politely declined Marcus's portfolio offer. While incredibly generous and financially tempting, it felt too much like an apology: contract guilt, money thrown at a problem to make it go away. Some things can't be bought, and self-respect is one of them. I recommended 2 other excellent consultants who could serve his needs. But Tom's rejection was personal, calculated, and absolutely necessary. "Tom, I appreciate the offer and the apology, but I'm going to have to pass. Sarah, please. I understand you're busy, but we can work around your schedule. The budget is flexible. If $200,000 isn't enough, we can negotiate. It's not about money or scheduling." "Then what can I do to make this work?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Tom, I've learned something important about business partnerships over the past few months. They work best when there's mutual respect from the beginning, not just when one party becomes desperate for what the other can provide." "I don't understand." "That night at dinner, you had a choice. When my husband was publicly humiliating me, dismissing my work, and treating me like an embarrassment, you could have spoken up. You could have asked thoughtful questions about my business, shown basic human decency, or simply changed the subject. Instead, you chose to check your phone and pretend it wasn't happening. The silence on the other end of the call was deafening. You're reaching out now because you need me, not because you believe in me or respect what I've built. You want to hire the successful consultant, but you wouldn't defend the woman who is building that success. There's a fundamental difference between those two positions. Sarah, I'm not finished. You see, I've realized that I don't just want to work with companies that can afford my rates. I want to work with people who would have seen my value even when I was charging $99 for a course, instead of $50,000 for a consultation. Jennifer's team treated me with respect when I was just starting to scale. They believed in my methodology before it was proven at their level. That's the kind of partnership that creates extraordinary results. But what about second chances? People can change, learn from their mistakes. Of course they can. And I genuinely hope you do learn from this. Tom, I hope you build the internal systems your company needs. And I hope you treat the next overlooked expert with the respect they deserve from the beginning. But that expert won't be me. Tom's company filed for bankruptcy 8 months later, not because they couldn't find help, but because by the time they recognized they needed it, the best people were no longer available to them. The consultation market rewards those who invest in relationships before they need them, not after they've burned bridges. But the real transformation was happening at home. David had become a completely different person. Or maybe he'd just finally started seeing me clearly for the first time in our 8-year marriage. He started asking about my work every evening, not in a condescending way, but with genuine curiosity and growing respect. He began referring to my business properly as a business, not a hobby or project. He even started bragging about me to his colleagues, which felt surreal after months of being dismissed. How do you do it? He asked one evening as I was reviewing a contract proposal from a Fortune 100 company. How did you build something this successful while I was completely oblivious to what was happening? I listened. I said simply, remember all those dinner parties where I sat quietly while you and your friends discussed business strategies, market dynamics, and leadership principles? I wasn't just being polite. I was taking notes. Every insight you shared, every case study you discussed, every piece of wisdom that came up in conversation, I was learning from some of the best business minds I knew. But why didn't you tell me what you were planning? Why didn't you ask for help or advice? David, I tried for months. I tried to share my ideas, my progress, my vision for what this could become. But every time I mentioned my work, you changed the subject, made jokes about my internet thing, or reminded me that you were handling the real responsibilities. You trained me not to share my business dreams with you that night. David did something he'd never done in 8 years of marriage. He asked to see my business plan, not to critique or dismiss it, but to understand what I'd built and where I was heading. I showed him everything: revenue projections that had me on track for 7 figures within 18 months, strategic partnerships with major corporations, a waiting list of clients that read like a who's who of American business, plans for scaling into a full consulting firm with a team of specialists. His eyes widened as he absorbed the scope of what I'd created. Sarah, this isn't just a business. This is an empire, I know. Why didn't you make this transition sooner? Why didn't you go full-time and scale aggressively earlier? I looked at him directly, letting the weight of the question hang in the air. Because I was waiting for someone to believe in me. It took me 28 years to realize that someone had to be me first. The final twist in this story came 6 months later, during a dinner party we hosted in the same dining room where my humiliation had begun. Same table, same china, same the view of the garden, but everything else had fundamentally changed. This time, the guests were my clients' CEOs and VPs whose companies I'd transformed, whose teams I'd made more efficient, whose bottom lines I'd improved by millions of dollars. The conversation centered around my work, my insights, my methodologies. David sat quietly for most of the evening, listening as these successful executives discussed the impact I'd had on their organizations. At one point, the CEO of a major manufacturing company, a woman who oversaw 15,000 employees and $2 billion in annual revenue, turned to him with genuine curiosity. David, you must be incredibly proud of Sarah. What she's accomplished is remarkable. You're married to one of the most innovative and effective consultants in the country. It must be amazing to have a front row seat to this kind of success story. David, it smiled, and I could see the complex mixture of pride, regret, and amazement in his expression. I am proud, incredibly proud, though I have to admit, I didn't always recognize her potential as clearly as I should have. I definitely didn't see this coming. After everyone left and we were cleaning up, David said quietly, I cost us years, didn't I? If I had supported you from the beginning, believed in what you were building instead of dismissing it, you could have reached this level so much sooner. I considered his question carefully. Maybe, but maybe I needed to prove it to myself first. Maybe I needed to know I could succeed without your permission or validation before I could succeed with your partnership. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a business card I'd had printed but hadn't shown him yet. It read, Sarah Mitchell consulting David Mitchell, Chief Operating Officer. I'm ready to scale beyond what I can handle alone, I said. And despite everything that's happened, you're still one of the smartest business minds I know. You understand corporate culture, strategic planning, and operational efficiency better than almost anyone. The question is, are you ready to work for the woman whose dreams you once called a hobby? He took the card and stared at it for a long moment. When he looked up, he was smiling, really smiling, with genuine joy and respect. For the first time in months, I'd be honored. But I have one condition. What's that? I want equity in the company, not just a salary. I want to be invested in this success, not just employed by it. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word. I smiled back. We can discuss terms, but David, this time, I set the salary. So what's the lesson here? Is it about proving doubters wrong, about the power of persistence, about standing up to dismissive partners? It's all of those things, but it's something deeper too. This story isn't really about revenge, it's about recognition. Recognition that your dreams, no matter how small they seem to others, have the potential to change not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you. Recognition that success isn't about getting permission from others, it's about giving yourself permission to be extraordinary. When David called my business a cute little hobby, he wasn't just dismissing my work, he was dismissing the hundreds of people I'd helped, the thousands more I would help, and the transformation that was possible when someone refuses to accept other people's limitations as their own reality. But here's what I learned, and here's what I want you to understand. You can't wait for others to see your vision. You can't pause your dreams until you get validation. You can't dim your light to make others comfortable with their own lack of ambition. The moment I stopped seeking approval and started seeking results, everything changed. Not just my bank account, though going from $500 a month to 6 consulting contracts was certainly life-changing. Not just my marriage, though having David go from dismissing me to wanting to work for me was deeply satisfying. What changed was how I saw myself and how the world responded to that shift in self-perception. I went from being David's wife who had a little side project to being Sarah Mitchell, CEO of a consulting firm that Fortune 500 companies compete to hire. I went from apologizing for my ambitions to unapologetically pursuing excellence. I went from asking for permission to commanding respect. And you know what the most beautiful part is? The world started valuing me at exactly the price I set for myself. When I charged $99 for a course, people treated it like a $99 product. When I raised my rates to $50,000 for corporate consultations, suddenly I was taken seriously as a premium expert. The market will always reflect your own assessment of your worth. I know some of you are watching this and thinking about your own little projects. Maybe it's a YouTube channel that's growing slowly. Maybe it's a side business that brings in a few $100s a month. Maybe it's a skill you're developing that others don't understand, or a dream that people keep telling you is unrealistic. Here's what I want you to know. Every empire starts with a single decision to take yourself seriously. Every transformation begins with refusing to accept other people's assessment of your potential. Every success story has a moment when the protagonist stops waiting for permission and starts demanding respect through results. Your moment is right now. But I don't want you to just feel inspired for the next 10 minutes and then forget about this story. I want you to take action that will change your trajectory starting today. First, if this story resonated with you, if you've ever been dismissed or underestimated or told your dreams were too small to matter, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. I share stories like this every week, real people who refused to accept limitations and created extraordinary results. This community is about turning setbacks into comebacks, and I want you to be part of it. Second, take inventory of your own situation right now. What have you been calling a hobby that could become your empire? What dream have you been minimizing to make others comfortable? What potential have you been hiding because you're afraid of being judged? Write it down right now, in the comments below or in your notes app. Name it, claim it, and commit to treating it with the respect it deserves. Third, raise your standards immediately. Stop apologizing for your ambitions. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop waiting for permission to be great. The world doesn't need another person playing small, it needs you playing at your highest level. Price your work according to the value you provide, not according to what you think people will pay. Speak about your goals with confidence, not with disclaimers and apologies. Fourth, find your tribe. Surround yourself with people who see your potential before you need their help, not just after you've proven yourself. David's friends only wanted to work with me after I was successful and could solve their problems. Jennifer's team believed in my methodology when I was still scaling up. That's the kind of support system that creates exponential growth. And finally, remember that every expert was once a beginner. Every successful person was once dismissed by someone who couldn't see their potential. Every person commanding respect was once seeking validation. The difference between those who make it and those who don't isn't talent or luck or connections. It's the willingness to bet on themselves when no one else will. I want to leave you with the most important realization from this entire journey. The moment you stop needing others to believe in you is the moment others start believing in you. Confidence is magnetic. Competence is undeniable, and when you combine the two with relentless execution, you become unstoppable. 3 months after that humiliating dinner party, David's friends weren't just apologizing, they were paying premium rates for my expertise. They weren't just respecting my business, they were competing for my attention. They weren't just seeing my potential, they were experiencing my results. That transformation didn't happen because I got lucky or because the market suddenly changed. It happened because I changed. I stopped accepting other people's assessment of my worth and started demonstrating my value through undeniable results. You have that same power. Right now, today, in whatever situation you're facing, you have the ability to shift from seeking permission to commanding respect. You have the capability to turn your little project into something that changes not just your life, but the lives of everyone you touch. The question isn't whether you have what it takes. The question is whether you're willing to bet on yourself, the way I bet on myself that night after the dinner party. Your empire is waiting. Your transformation is possible. Your moment is now. Stop waiting for someone else to see your potential. Start showing the world what you're capable of, and remember, the best revenge isn't just success. It's choosing who gets to benefit from that success. Don't now go build something so extraordinary that the people who dismissed you will be begging for your mentorship. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore another story of someone who turned their biggest setback into their greatest comeback. Until then, keep building, keep believing, and keep proving the doubters wrong. Subscribe, like this video if it inspired you, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Your support helps me reach more people who need to know that their dreams aren't too small and their potential isn't limited by other people's vision. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.